I need you to come in close for a second because I am about to very lovingly call you out. So if your podcast goals sound like this, I want to grow. I want more listeners. I want to finally be consistent. I want to monetize. I want to blow up on YouTube. Now, those are not goals. That's a hope, a wish, even a vibe with a vision board. And listen, I'm not saying it's wrong to want those things. I want them too. But vague goals are why so many podcasters hit the wall and think, I guess I'm just bad at this. Maybe I'm not cut out for podcasting. I'll come back to it when life calms down. I'll just take a break. And then your podcast becomes that treadmill in the corner of your room that silently judges you every time you walk by it. But not this year, because 2026 is not the year that we set goals that are going to collapse under real life pressure. So today on the show, we are talking about smart podcast goals that last. And I'm going to show you how to set goals that actually work, even when your motivation is gone, even when your real life shows up. Let's go. Okay, confession time. I used to set goals for my podcast and even sometimes for my business that sounded so spiritual, but it felt like pressure. I would say things like, I want to impact more people. I want to grow my show. I want to be more consistent. I want to finally take this seriously. And what I meant was, I'm scared I'm falling behind. I feel like everybody is growing way faster than I am. I'm doing a lot, but nothing really feels like it's working. I'm trying to prove something. And friend, podcast goals built on pressure will always lead to burnout because these goals aren't anchored to purpose. They're anchored to insecurity. And insecurity is a terrible project manager. It will work you into the ground and still tell you you are not doing enough. So today, we're doing it different. We're going to build goals with structure and grace. Goals that can survive, whether it's a busy week, a sick kid, a particularly hard season you didn't see coming, a low motivation day, a nothing is working moment. Because real success in podcasting is consistency with peace. Now, before I teach you all about SMART goals, we really have to diagnose the issue because the majority of podcasters don't fail from laziness. They fail from unrealistic goal design. A perfect example is goals that are too vague. Things like be consistent is not a strategy. It doesn't tell you when you record, how often you release, what your workflow is, and what happens when you miss a week. Vague goals create vague results and vague guilt. So what if your goal depends on other people? So a goal like, I want to hit 10,000 downloads depends on the algorithm, changes to Apple and or Spotify. We all remember what happened to our analytics when Apple changed the algorithm. It depends on your listeners' habits, whether they share it, whether you're in the right season. So what happens if you work your tail off and the numbers just don't hit? You feel like you failed, even though you were faithful. So we want goals that we can control. What if your goal is ignoring the season that you're in? Now, this is a big one, and I see this all the time with podcasters. They set goals for a version of themselves who sleeps 8 hours, has the energy they need every single day. They don't have stress. They don't have a real job. They don't have family demands. They never get sick, and they never get discouraged. That woman does not exist. She's a stock photo. She's an Instagram highlight reel. So let's build goals for the real you. Now, SMART goals stand for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. But I'm going to teach this today in Tammy terms because this is not corporate training energy here. So a SMART goal should do one thing. It should tell you exactly what to do when you sit down to work because motivation won't always be there, but a strategic plan will. Okay, specific. So instead of saying, I want to grow my podcast, who doesn't, right? Maybe say it like, I'm publishing one episode every Wednesday at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Instead of saying, I'm going to promote my show more, you could say, I'm posting 2 reels and 3 stories every week to promote my episode. Specific means it's so clear that you cannot wiggle out of it. And listen, this matters because our brains love loopholes. And a vague goal gives your brain room to say, well, technically, I did work on it because I thought about it. No. Being specific is action-based, not intention-based. So a question that I like to use when I'm speaking to clients about how to set these goals or the goals that they are setting. If you had to explain it to a 5th grader, could you? Would they be able to understand what you're talking about? If you can't, it's not specific enough. Because if you can't measure your actual progress, you're going to spiral. Because what happens is we start feeling like we're failing, even though we're doing really great. Because our feelings sometimes lie to us. Our ego gets in there and imposter syndrome and all the other things. But measurable goals that you can actually track reduce the emotional chaos. You can measure things like you publish 4 episodes a month. You're going to batch record 2 episodes per session. You're going to write out your outlines 1 week ahead. You're going to send an email once a week. You're going to add 1 call to action per episode. But here's what I want you to hear. Your measurement doesn't need to be super impressive, but it does need to be trackable. Because when life gets messy, and it always does, tracking gives you evidence. Facts don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Feelings do, but not hard data. And the evidence that it's giving you is that you're showing up, that you're building momentum, and that you're moving forward. So quick pause here, friend. If this episode is giving you clarity, I want you to go hit subscribe. And if you wouldn't mind, send it to a podcaster friend who needs to hear this message. All right, back to the good stuff. Okay, let's talk about Achievable. Now, here is where we stop lying to ourselves. I feel really bossy today. But Achievable means, can you do this with your current schedule, energy, and season? And we're not talking about Achievable for the fantasy version of you, but for the version of you who gets tired, has responsibilities, has emotions. Sometimes you experience brain fog. Sometimes you just can't for whatever reason. Because a goal that's too big becomes shame. And shame kills creativity faster than anything. So instead of saying, I'm going to post on 4 platforms every day and release 2 episodes a week, that's a lot and not very achievable. Try saying, I'm going to release weekly and promoting my episode twice a week. That's achievable because achievable goals should stretch you, but not break. One of my hard and fast rules whenever setting any kind of goal for myself or my client is, does it require me to become a different human being overnight? If it does, it's not achievable. Okay, so let's look at relevant. Now, this is where most podcasters waste a lot of their time. Because relevant means, does this goal support the show you're actually building? Because it's super easy to chase goals that don't belong to your assignment. On the show before, I've talked about how different podcasts can have different jobs. So, for example, if your podcast is to help grow your email list, a relevant goal might be to mention my lead magnet in every intro, mention my course in every intro, not become a viral TikTok creator. If your podcast exists to build authority, a goal might be improve episode structure and clarity, not post daily memes. If your podcast exists to sell a service, a great goal would be record episodes tied to my offer themes, not chase random trending topics. Because relevant goals create alignment, and that alignment creates our peace. So let's talk about time-bound. Now, time-bound goals are what keep you from saying someday, because someday is not a day of the week. Examples would be, by March 31st, I will have published 12 episodes. By February 15th, I will record my trailer plus 3 episodes for the podcast launch. By April 3rd, I will have a repeatable weekly workflow. Because time creates urgency, but not panic. It creates focus. Now, here are some goals that you can actually borrow. Now, these goals that I'm going to talk about next are all goals that we have helped clients develop. So for consistency, I will publish 1 episode every Wednesday at 3 a.m. for the next 8 weeks. You want to promote more? I will post 2 reels and 3 stories per week tied to my podcast for 30 days. A workflow. I will batch record 4 episodes on the first Friday of every month. You want to grow? And this is control-based growth. I will improve my episode hook and structure so my average listen through or podcast consumption increases by 5% in 60 days. These goals are not fluffy, they're measurable, and they're built for longevity. Now, Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty." And I feel like this is such an entrepreneur and podcaster verse because diligence means showing up, doing the work, being steady, and not chasing the shortcuts. And haste is that frantic energy that screams, do more, be everywhere, post everything, never stop, go, 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 go. Because God is not impressed by frantic. He's honored by faithful. And faithfulness looks like setting goals that you can actually keep. Now, here is my 3-step system for setting goals that last. And I use this very strategy with many of my podcast strategy clients. Step 1, I want you to pick 1 primary goal, not 5. I know those of you who are out there thinking that. Just 1. Consistency, growth, workflow, marketing, and promotion, whatever it is. Pick the one that's going to change your podcast the most in the next 30 days. Step 2, choose the smallest version that works. The smallest, the most sustainable, and the most repeatable. Because if you can't do it on your hardest week, then it's too big. Step 3, calendar it like it matters. Because if it's not scheduled, it does not exist. That's something that I talk about all the time. If it doesn't go on my schedule, it doesn't happen. I want you to put your recording time on your calendar. I want you to put your promotional time on your calendar. And I want you to put your editing time on your calendar if you are DIYing your own podcast editing. Because this is how you stop trying and you start building. If you want help in setting these goals, I would love to help you. I would love to help you build a plan that actually carries them out. And that's exactly what we do in our strategy sessions. will match your goals to your season, your bandwidth, your message, your audience, and your actual life. Because podcasting should not steal your peace. So if you're interested in that, go to wildfirecreativecompany.com/strategy and we'll build it together. So friend, you don't need a perfect year. You need a sustainable one. Your goals do not need to impress people. They need to support you. And you are not behind. You're building something that's going to last because podcasting is a long-term game, y'all. You don't want something that's going to burn bright for 30 days and then dies a horrible death. So here's your challenge for the week. I want you to write down one SMART goal today, put it on your calendar, and take that first step this week. Because playing small is just not an option. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today, friend. If this episode helped you, I would love if you would share it with a podcasting friend that needs to hear it. Remember, you can love Jesus and analytics, and life is just way too short for boring podcasts. I'll see you next week. Bye, y'all.